And I'll just sit down, how's that? Let me get a microphone before we get with it, Court, and we want to make sure we get it recorded. And so everything, and Austin's got the video run. Okay, good deal.
About 6 or 8 weeks ago, I was in Dallas for the OU Texas game, and as I was getting ready to go back to Norman to go back to school, I had my parachute with me, and I've had my license now for about 4 or 5 years. And when I get the opportunity to, I like to stop off and get a couple of jumps in and everything, and just kind of refill my adrenaline tank and everything. So I stopped off, and I was driving up to the place I go to in Dallas. It's just about an hour north. And as I was driving up there, I wasn't really paying a whole lot of attention to anything. I wasn't really listening to music, or I didn't have anything on my mind really. I was just kind of sitting there, and I just kind of felt like the Lord was kind of speaking to me. And I had this vision that as I jumped out of the plane, I had some type of malfunction with my parachute, and the specificity of the malfunction wasn't necessarily mentioned. But something had happened, and angels were carrying me down. And so I just kind of tried to brush that off and not really give it much thought. I just figured maybe my mind's playing some tricks on me and things like that. So I got there and got my chute ready, got on the first load to get up for the day. And I got on the plane, and I had that same vision again. And I thought to myself, I've never really had a vision like this, never had a thought like this. Why is this happening to me now, especially as I'm in the plane? And so I kind of prayed about it real quick, and I went ahead with the jump and jumped out and everything was fine. My free fall was fine. My parachute opened properly. So I'm thinking and I thought, maybe my mind was playing some tricks with me. Well, as I just crossed under 1,000 feet, the winds had shifted directions. Instead of coming out of the north, they come out of the northwest. And I just happened to be in the middle of my last turn to complete my landing pattern. I was just under 1,000 feet, and when the winds had shifted like that, they had grabbed the side of my parachute and rolled it underneath. And I looked at my situation and I tried to fix it, and I couldn't fix it. There was nothing I could do to make it better, and I didn't have enough time to cut away from that parachute and go to my reserve. It takes about 850 to 900 feet to do that. And by the time I had cut away and done all that, I would have hit the ground before my other parachute even opened. So I thought, it's better to land with a bad parachute than no parachute. So I held on to what I had and tried to deal with what I had and how flyable it was. And the witnesses on the ground said that myself and the parachute were just spinning around as we were coming down, and they said I landed face first at about roughly 60 miles an hour from just under 1,000 feet. And it knocked me out instantly. And it just so happened there were some people, it was like God kind of set it up that everything was in place, and there just so happened to be a nurse that it was her weekend off, I guess, and she was there skydiving and thought she'd get a couple of jumps in also. And so she kind of helped sustain me, and they had the fire department come in and keep me going. They had to wait for, I think they had to lifeline me in. And so they took me into the hospital, and I was knocked out for quite a long time. And my parents got to the hospital, and when they got there, I was still knocked out. It's a 3.5-hour drive alone just from where they were at, not to mention all the time that it had built up to that point. And I was still knocked out. And when I got there, the doctors looked at my parents and said, "We don't get it, and we don't understand it. But somehow he's okay. He's alive. Like, we have no scientific or medical explanation to explain why your son is still alive, and even if we could, why he's not just a bag of broken bones." It said the fatality rate for people that fall from distances between 40 and 80 feet is well over 80 to 90%. And I fell from just under 1,000 at about 60 miles an hour. And as I thought about it, I was like, I couldn't help but see the hand of God in that, and I've kind of struggled with survivor's guilt, here and there with Iraq. I had a couple instances, at least two, that I shouldn't have made it home. And I have no way to explain those except God. And then this situation, and I have no other way to explain this except God was there. And I thought about that, and I prayed about that, and I kept asking God, why do you keep doing this? Why do you keep showing up like this in my life? And why is it always, why do I always come out okay? And for a while I prayed that prayer, and I haven't ever felt like He answered me until just a couple weeks ago. I was praying and I felt like He finally did. And it was the most simple answer I've ever received, and it was the best answer I think I've ever received. I said, God, why do you keep doing this for me? And He said, because you believed I could do it. And it wasn't necessarily that I believed that He would, or that He should, but just that He could if He wanted. And I thought about all the times in the Bible that I've read about all the healings that have taken place. The blind man that could see, the people that were lame that could walk again, the woman with the blood disease who thought if she could just touch the hem of His garment, she could be made whole. And it wasn't that Jesus would heal them, or that He owed it to them to heal them, but just if they could just get there, that He could. And He did. Just because He could, He did. Or just because I believe He could, He did. And for me, that was the best answer I think I could have ever received. And God, through this situation, God has given me the opportunity to witness to people and to talk about my faith and things like that. I've always been a strong believer, but I've never been very outward with expressing my faith within God. And this has definitely given me an opportunity to kind of step out there, like it says in Romans 1:16, for I will not be ashamed of the gospel of Christ. Through it is God's power for salvation, for me and for others. And my faith has really grown through this, and as I've read through the Bible and things like that, I've come across multiple scriptures, and Paul talks about in Corinthians. He says, "For we are troubled on every side, and yet not distressed. We're persecuted, but not forsaken, and cast down, but we're never destroyed." And the conclusion of the whole matter is that God will never put you through anything that's more than you can handle. It's more than you can bear. And whether it's for you or for someone else, you may be one good mistake from being used.
Is that it? That's awesome. So the question all of us have, are you going to jump out of a plane? His mother says no. Brother Eddie says, today I'll jump out. Right? Wow. Thank you, brother. Is that not a miracle?
Amen.
Is that not a miracle?
Amen.
Wow. Praise the Lord. Faith. I believe the Bible is